On today's episode of The Hero's Blueprint, we're joined by one of the most iconic voices in personal growth and transformation. He's a global thought leader, a star of the blockbuster hit The Secret, and the author of over 75 books that have helped millions rewrite their lives from the inside out. For over 35 years, he's been guiding people to awaken their potential, harness the law of attraction, and create the life they desire and deserve. Please welcome the handsome and kind-hearted, the legend himself, Dr. Joe Vitale. How you doing, Dr. Joe?
Well, you threw me off by saying handsome and kind-hearted. I don't think that's ever been used in an introduction in my entire 71 years of being here.
Really? What's the truth?
Well,
It's got to be used more.
Everybody else has overlooked it, so thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, of course. And there's a lot of things that we just said there in the intro. 75 books, The Secret, which, most people are familiar with that. But I actually want to dive in before all of this. Let's rewind from the beginning. You went from being homeless to becoming one of the most recognized voices in personal growth. I'm curious, what kept you going when no one was watching or when you were in that time?
That's one of the greatest questions ever, because my overnight, in parentheses, success, or in quotations, success, really took about 30 years. And I wanted to be an author ever since I was a kid. But I went through homelessness. I went through poverty for 10 years. It was not a party. It was not easy. And people have often said, what kept you going? And I thought about it because there were times when I actually even considered suicide. And I walked out with a shotgun at one point. And yeah, I walked out with a shotgun and I was going to aim it at myself and I was going to pull the trigger. And there was only one thing that stopped me. And that same one thing is what I got up in the morning for every day. And that was the word curiosity. Curiosity. What if it all changes later today? What if it all changes tomorrow? What if it all changes next week or next month or next year? And I would have just pulled the curtain down way too early. It was curiosity that got me up every day and kept going, thinking that, it's got to work out somehow, some way, someday. So keep up and keep getting up and keep moving forward. Curiosity. That's what kept me going.
Wow. That's incredible right there. That's so deep. Curiosity. I think a lot of people, especially my listeners right now who are in college or in their early 20s, they might be in a time where they feel also just lost or
Sure.
confused about what they want to do in life and that maybe the world just feels very heavy. Um, so I'm sure curiosity would be one of your answers, but if you could go back and give your 20-year-old self advice, what would you say from what you know now?
Yeah, another great question. And I'm not oblivious to the fact that we live in chaotic times. Right now, as people are living and breathing and working and looking at the day and looking at the future, it doesn't look very rosy. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, a lot of concern, and rightly so. And so I'm speaking to the people who are feeling that right now, because I'm in it too. But I'm also speaking to the younger version of myself way back in the 1960s and early 1970s. And the big thing that I would say, that it's really hard to accept, but the big thing would be reduce your focus to the day. One day at a time, it's all fine. One day at a time, it's all fine. Now, I'm not dismissing having goals. I teach having goals. I had a goal to be an author when I was homeless. It was still there. It was hanging in front of me. But if I can go back in time and say, look, focus on today. Yes, have the goal in front of you as a goalpost, so to speak, and that's the target. That's where you're going. But you also have to balance it with your day-to-day living. And once you focus on today and I can handle today. I can handle today. Well, one day at a time, you can finish the race. And that's what I would say. Focus on the future, have your goal, but also be in the moment knowing you can handle today. And that's all you really have to handle is today.
Yeah. Man, and one thing you said in your first answer, I think in combination with what you just said, the what if it all works out or what if it's
Right.
different?
Yeah.
Because I know, for me, for everyone, it's so easy to let the world kind of overwhelm you, especially if you have like this long-term plan. Like a lot of people in college right now, they're wondering, is what I'm going to college for even gonna be around in 5 years because of AI or 10
Right.
years and stuff like that. So that what you said too about the what if it all works out, I think is super transformative as well, because that
Mhm.
opens up a whole new reality and realm that maybe you don't even think about.
Let's
Because,
unpack that a little bit
yeah,
because the phrase, what if it all works out, there's actually a technique and a movement behind that. And I'm on the board if the what if of the whatifup.org organization. And there's a book called What If It All Goes Right by my friend Mindy Odlin. And so this is a technique. This is a mindset. We might as well talk about it right now to give people something that they can start using. The average person, and myself way back, especially when I was homeless and in poverty, looks at the world with a what if down attitude. That means, what if it doesn't work out? What if my job isn't here in a few years? What if what I'm going to college for isn't actually going to be even useful? It's going to be replaced by a robot or an AI chatbot of some sort. And so that's all what if down. That's all negative thinking. That's all depressing thinking. That is all going down the spiral into a kind of a discouragement and depression. What if up is the opposite? What if it all works out? What if my job or something better is available? What if what I'm going to school for right now becomes useful in a capacity I don't even see because maybe it doesn't exist yet? But because I went to school for this, when I come out, the headhunters look for me first because of unforeseen changes in the universe. So we start looking at life with a what if up possibility. What if I'm the right person? What if this all works out? What if I find the love of my dream? What if I cure whatever the health issue is? What if I graduate early? What if you just throw out all of the what if ups in a positive way? And I'm quick to point out, we don't know what the future holds. So we can't play the what if down game. The what if down game is assuming the future is going to be bleak. The what if up game assumes the future is going to be fantastic. We don't know either one of those. So if you have a choice on how to feel and how to perceive right now, the wiser thing, the more empowering approach is to actually look at it with a what if up. What if it all works out?
that's incredible because you're absolutely right. There is a choice. You
Yes.
have a choice of either thinking about what if everything goes wrong or think about what if everything goes right. And as much as like life might try telling you that everything is going wrong right now, it's so easy to think that because right now, if you're going through a hard time, that the future is going to be hard. But I encourage everyone right now, like really try and sit with the fact that that doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Just because it's happening right now doesn't mean the future is already written.
Right.
What if everything works out? Make that choice. Try and be optimistic, maybe even more optimistic than you've ever been before. But go that extra mile to try and ask yourself, well, what if,
Well,
you know,
let's look
everything
at
can
this even
turn
more
around?
deeply. And I tell people we live in an optical illusion. Life is an optical illusion. You can look out and you can find evidence for the bleakest of present time reality and the bleakest of possible futures. And you can look out and you can find authorities, you can find studies, you can find the experts, you can find shows, you can find books that will support that opinion. By the same token, if you decide that the world is actually doing pretty good, it's a shakedown right now. We don't know how it's morphing into a new reality, but it's probably going to be incredible. You can look around and you will find authorities, you will find authors, you will find studies, you will find scientists, you will find books, you will find evidence to support that opinion. Well, which is correct? They both are. They both are. And as you sit here in present reality and you go, okay, I can choose to look at the world going down the shithole, or I can choose to look at the world going to heaven. It's your choice. Which one gets you through the day? Which one gets you to solve your problems, that are challenges that are coming up? Which one gets you to graduate early? Which one gets you the job? Which one makes you feel better? Which one makes you feel healthier? I'm in favor of saying, look, the optimistic way of life is a far better approach to, to moving through your days. The other approach is you're walking through hell and you're already dead. So if life's an optical illusion, why don't you choose the illusion that makes you feel the best?
I absolutely agree. And I think that a lot of people can also look at their social media feeds right now and
Yeah.
get a clear understanding of what position are you in. Because if you're seeing all this negativity, all this stuff that says the world is a bad place and all this stuff, I mean, think about that right there. You're just feeding yourself what you believe to be true.
Yeah.
Whereas, one thing I did actually on social media, a lot of people don't know you can do this, is reset your feeds, unfollow people who maybe are posting negativity, stop engaging with stuff that is negative, because you're going to keep seeing more of that. And I think that especially for a lot of people my age and younger, they don't realize just how much of an impact social media has on them,
Yeah.
because that whole external world is available at any moment. Like you said,
Yeah.
whatever you believe to be true is what the social media feed is going to put towards you, because it thinks you like that.
Yeah, and if you go to the social media with a kind of a blank slate, like you're just curious, before you know it, you're going to be brainwashed.
Yeah.
You are going to be brainwashed by what you're looking at. And the whole social media experience is an illusion anyway. Most people are posting their highlight reels, and you look at them and you think your life sucks compared to them because they're posting their highlight reels. You think it's like that for them all the time. There were times, during the pandemic, I was still posting on Instagram. And during the pandemic, I was going through a very ugly, destructive divorce that lasted 3 years. But I still got on Instagram and I still smiled for the camera and I still posted upbeat, optimistic things. But right after I turned the camera off, oh my God, I was in hell again. And so if you followed my feed, you would say, oh my God, Dr. Joe's doing fantastic. I wish I had his life. No, you didn't wish you had my life. You were only seeing the sizzle reel. You were seeing the happy faces that I chose to put there. By the same token, the people that you're following on social media, they're probably not putting the happy stuff. They're probably putting, look what happened in the world today, and they highlight some instant and incident that may have happened in another country at another time. The old joke is if you can't find bad news, look back in history, find something that was bad that happened today and post that, always keeping the negative in the forefront. So I've often told people, turn off the mainstream news. It is programming you for negativity. It is feeding off of your hardwired approach to survival by telling you what to be afraid of. Social media does the very same thing. And most of the people reposting all of this negativity or highlighting the negativity have no clue how unconscious they are in how they're programming themselves and programming other people. So I agree with you. Unfollow those people.
Unfollow those people. You heard it right there. Um, yeah, there's so many things to unpack right there, because I also want to talk about the fact that what you mentioned about a lot of people post their highlight reels on social media, right? And I think a
Right.
lot of people, they see that and then they feel like they can't take action because they're not in the position that they're seeing other people are in, where they're already successful, where they're already feeling like, oh, this guy's got it made, oh, this guy's living a good life. And a lot of people will see that and it'll discourage them, because they're like, well, I'm in a bad spot. I can't do what he's doing because I just don't have the resources, the energy, and stuff like that. But I want to ask you about taking action, messy action, even when life is hard. How can people right now who are going through stuff take action to try and build the life they want, even if they feel like they don't have the energy or like life is against them?
You can always take action, and action is the secret to success. People watch the movie The Secret that you had pointed out earlier. That movie came out 20 years ago, but people still see it. They still talk about it. It's made history. It's made a difference in people's lives. But the big complaint and I'm in the movie, have about the movie is that it didn't talk enough about taking action. I think I'm the only guy in the movie who said it's your job to actually take action to make your dreams come true. And I say it's a co creation. The universe and all the people within it are going to move, but you have to move to join in the dance of manifesting, of creating, of attracting, whatever word you want to use, what you want to have in your life. And you have to take action even with uncertainty. And when I look back over my life, I thought, my God, I'm kind of impressed that I took all this action when there was no guarantee of success, when I was not published, I was not known, I was starving, I was at some point homeless and for 10 years in poverty, and I was still taking action. And nobody was applauding me, nobody was encouraging me, and those action steps were very often clumsy because I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm pointing out to everybody, nobody knows what they're doing. There isn't any actual map to success that you're supposed to follow. You create the map by the action steps you take beginning today. And when people look at me and they say, well, I don't have the money. You don't need the money. Money is an excuse. What you need is more creativity and more courage. There have been numerous tales of some of the greats, the Winston Churchill, George Washington, look throughout history, where they were facing big challenges and they had no money when money, in their opinion, would have been nice to have. Yet they still took action in whatever creative, courageous way they could to move forward. I'm a big fan of quoting Teddy Roosevelt, who said, "Do what you can with what you have right where you are." That's it right there. Do what you can with what you have right where you are. And the other thing I want to say about action is action creates a ripple effect in the universe. When you do something, anything in the movement of your dreams, you send a signal, you send a ripple, you send the beginning of a domino effect, and a lot of things begin to happen that you don't even see in that moment. For one reason or another, I'm doing some promotions for my new movie. Hopefully, we'll talk about that in a minute. And I was sending out news releases, and a friend of mine had said, "Well, we're sending out these news releases and nothing seems to be happening." And I told her the story of when I was in Houston, where I was living way back in the 1980s, and I had a book come out, and I sent a news release out about it, and nothing happened. 1 year later, 1 year later, the editor of the lifestyle section of the Houston, I think it was the Chronicle at the time, called me up and interviewed me for a front page article in the magazine, in the newspaper. And I said, "How did you know to call me?" And he says, "Oh, I have your news release from 1 year ago." It's amazing what you deposit as seeds when you start taking actions. And again, the actions don't have to be a big deal. The action could be making a phone call, sending out an email, attending a seminar, buying a book. I mean, there's probably all kinds of things. Going for a walk in the right place could be the action step that leads to the next step in your journey to more success.
Yeah.
Action is crucial.
Before we dive into the movie, I wanted to say I've always said I believe action creates attraction because
Yes.
there's so
Yes.
many times where I've been laying in bed and, I just feel like not getting out of bed or like life just is heavy, whatever. I just don't want to take action. But like you just said, you literally never know what the action you take could lead to. And if you combine that with the what if me taking this action, getting out of bed, posting something on social media, starting writing a paragraph for a book that I'm thinking about writing, what if that is the exact thing that could lead to what you've always envisioned or what you've always thought is impossible for you? But
Right.
unless you take that first initial step, which was for me getting out of bed and actually taking the step towards it,
Right.
you literally will never know. I
That's
think that's
it.
so powerful.
That's it.
So this new movie, Zero Limits, I want to dive into that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things you talk about in there, and especially a practice which I don't want to butcher the name, but I believe you know which practice I'm talking about.
Of course.
Tell us about the movie and like what is in it. Where can people watch it too? First of all,
Well, I'm very excited. Zero Limits is an exploration of what's possible in our lives. I've been on a quest to find out if we actually have any limits. And so far, I've found we don't. We don't have any limits. We have beliefs about what's possible. And so the limits are more mental constructs about our lives. But if we question those mental constructs, we find out, well, maybe that's not true. Maybe I can actually do it. And of course, in my own life, I became a musician at the age of 60 and I recorded 15 albums. Around the same time, a few years later, I became a strongman and got into strongman training where you bend horseshoes and nails and bolts and ridiculous but superhuman kind of things like that. And when I turned 71, I enrolled in mixed martial arts and I've been going on a regular basis. I just got my orange belt recently and I'm going for the black by the time I'm 75. So I'm exploring whether we have any limits. And I wanted to do it as a movie because ever since The Secret came out, I saw that most people don't read books. Most people don't go to the library or the bookstore, but almost everybody sits in front of their TV. And almost everybody is watching Netflix or Amazon or some variation of some entertainment in film form. And The Secret, of course, as we've been talking about, has been around for 20 years. And maybe millions of people around the planet have been touched by it. So I wanted my own movie, and I'm glad to say it is done. It's already been nominated for, last I heard, 27 awards and won 11 awards. And the world premiere is June 26th in Sacramento. And then it will be streaming later on Amazon TV and Apple TV and places like that. People can watch the trailer right now, learn about all the different aspects of the movie, see the cast, learn more about what the movie is sharing at zerolimitsmovie.com. Zerolimitsmovie.com. And then the other thing you mentioned was about the core technique that the movie describes, and everybody that's a cast, all the stars in the movie have used. It's called Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono. It's a Hawaiian healing technique, and the healing is working on your perceptions of life. What you're calling a problem is mostly a problem because of your perception of it. And Ho'oponopono goes inside of yourself to clean up your perceptions. If you think back to what we said earlier, life is an optical illusion. You get what you perceive, you get what you believe, you get what you expect. Well, if you clean that up, you can see a better version and a more objective reality of life. And Ho'oponopono is based on 4 phrases that you say inside yourself. So I'm inviting people right now that are tuning in to think of something that's bothering them. And it could be a confusion, it could be an aggravation, it could be a gnawing problem, it could be a reoccurring problem, it could just be something that's anything that's keeping you from being happy right now. What is that? And whatever it is, just feel it. You're feeling it somewhere in your body, you're thinking about it, it's coming up inside of yourself. And as you're feeling it, you say these 4 phrases internally. You don't say them out loud, you don't say them to another person. You say them internally to a higher power. And that could be anything for anybody. You can be an atheist and say nature. You can be devout and say it's God. You can say it's the divine. You can say it's the universe, the cosmos. Napoleon Hill of Think and Grow Rich called it infinite intelligence, which I've always liked. And the 4 phrases are, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. And you're saying those inside yourself to your connection to a greater power, and you're feeling whatever the issue is. The design of Ho'oponopono is to go into the subconscious where the database of limiting beliefs are and to correct them. In fact, Ho'oponopono means in Hawaiian to make right. What you're making right are your perceptions. Well, the movie Zero Limits goes into all of this, and the various people that are stars in the movie talk about their stories and their transformations, all based on this. So I've wanted a movie to explore whether we have limits and to introduce the tool that can help people have a happier life. And that's Ho'oponopono. And because of all that, I created Zero Limits, the movie.
Coming out June 26th in Sacramento, and
Yeah.
it'll be in the show notes for this episode too, for
Good.
listeners to check it out as well. That's a treat right there that you just said, though. Given that practice right there for people listening.
I invite them to use it right now. Honest to God, let's not bypass the moment. Whatever's going on, including confusion about what I just said, that's inside of yourself. In fact, it's important to remember all the things we perceive as problems are inside us. We point outside and say, oh, it's the politics, or it's the economy, or it's the changes in the astrology. There's all kind of things we can point and blame at. But what we're feeling and calling a problem is only experienced internally. That's important, because if it's only experienced internally, it means you have an opportunity to clean it up, to clear it, to heal it, to make it right. And Ho'oponopono is a path to do that.
So I want to ask you, what are some signs or ways that a person might be unknowingly sabotaging their own success due to limiting beliefs? What if they just don't even recognize that they have these limiting beliefs?
Well, most of us don't recognize that we have limiting beliefs. And that's because the limiting beliefs are reality. We're living out of reality, not knowing that our version of reality is made from our unconscious beliefs. This is why I think coaching is almost essential to transformation, because a coach, a trained coach, is on the outside of your nest of beliefs. They're not living from your software program. And so they can reflect it back to you. I created Miracles Coaching 25 years ago for this very reason. I saw that the biggest changes, the most accelerated changes, came when I had a coach. So I started Miracles Coaching. It's at miraclescoaching.com. It's not the only way to discover your beliefs, of course. You can look at your own life and find where you're not achieving what you're trying to achieve. If you have a reoccurring problem, if you have a reoccurring block, if you have a reoccurring frustration about a goal that you're trying to have, there is probably a belief behind it that is holding you in place. And so you want to recognize that, oh, I might have a belief block. And then the second step, doing this on your own, would be to kind of fantasize what might be a belief that would hold me back. What could be a belief there? And then once you have something, you can write it down. And then the third step would be to question it. And I've been using the term be a good attorney and cross examine the belief. Where's the evidence for that belief? Because I've learned as soon as we start to analyze it and question it and look for any evidence for the belief being there, it dismantles. We find there isn't any real belief for it. It's been something we've been living from, we've been thinking, we've been reinforcing by our life experience, but we never really stopped to question it. So when we stop and question why might that be there, and we can't find any real evidence for it, it starts to evaporate and you start to be free from it. So I would do all of those different things. But again, I would say Miracles Coaching, any sort of trained coach who can hear and reflect can help you see what they are. One more thing I want to say, if you can give me another minute on this topic, is you mentioned self-sabotage. In my research, in my experience, I found that there is no such thing as self-sabotage. It is more self-preservation. It's more self-protection. And so when somebody is laying there and they go, well, I want to do this project, but I'm not doing this project. And they're realizing that instead of saying that it's sabotage, they want to ask themselves, how am I protecting myself by not doing it? That more lovingly, politely, and curiously leads us to a possible belief that's behind it. Like, well, I'm afraid of being hurt. If I release this project, it could be a success or it could be a failure. Either way, I'm going to have to face up to whatever that reality is, and I don't want to face it. Why don't you want to face it? Because I don't want to be hurt. When you start to explore it, question it, unravel it, and accept it, then you find, well, I'll be okay either way. I'm still got to live, one day at a time. It's still going to be fine. So I'll go ahead and finish the project, put it out there in the world and see how it flies. And whatever it does, I'll have another project. You mentioned I wrote 75 books. The latest is 90 books. I've written 90 books. You know why? There's always another project.
Mm-hmm. That's such a mindset shift, though, going from self-sabotage to self-preservation,
Yeah.
because
No, self-protection.
self-sabotage
Yeah.
can bring a lot of, I guess, negative
Right.
reinforcements or
Right.
beliefs of how am I sabotaging myself,
Right.
and that can lead into so much struggle because then people are like, oh, but I'm doing all these different things, and they try changing so many things at once,
Yeah.
which then just creates more,
Right.
not no action, but that asking yourself, how am I protecting myself?
Yeah.
I love that because it just brings up, it lets you go from the start to start building yourself up to a point to where you can take action. Because if your worry is fear, or going back to tie this into what we were saying about media, you might unknowingly have coaches from your social media feed that are reinforcing those beliefs, and you might not even be aware of that. And if you start from the place of how am I preserving myself, how am I protecting myself, go on social media and ask yourself, are the people and the things that you're watching reinforcing the belief that maybe I can't do this or I
Yeah.
can do this. And another thing right there, because I wholeheartedly agree that you need a coach because perception and perspective, everyone has their own perception of the world, but perspective, when somebody can step in your world and see it from an outside angle, man, like everything can change when somebody can
Yeah.
bring in some new information. But again, if that new information is all negative from media or social media, if you don't have the money for a coach, if you don't have the time, if think about that. Think about your media and your feed because they are unknowingly coaches for you.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to
Uh,
put that in there too.
well, that's more about awareness. I totally agree with you, but it's being aware. I tell people everything is feeding your soul, everything. And so is it negative or is it positive? One of the reasons I became a musician at the age of 60, at this point, 12 years ago, is because I wanted to apply the concepts of self development to music. Because when I realized music was programming us, and I went deeper and realized it was programming us most often for negativity and for lack of limitation, I wanted to do something about it. When people say I can't always get what I want, I tell them you can thank Mick Jagger. He's been singing that since 1965, and it's got that affirmation, which is a negation, and it's got the rhythm. And we listen to the song, we dance to the song, we repeat the song, not knowing we are programming ourselves to not get what we want. And so I tell people, what are you watching on TV? What movies are you watching? They're programming you. What music are you listening to? It's programming you. What are the people around you saying? They're programming you. What social media are you paying attention to? It's programming you. What are your own thoughts feeding you? It's programming you and reinforcing your program. And so I urge people to have a wake up and just pay attention. It's like you can listen to Mick Jagger. I mean, I enjoy his music and the Rolling Stones. I listen, but I listen with awareness. And so now it's just automatically, it's not automatically programming me. Now it's just music. And I kind of chuckle when I hear you can't always get what you want. I'm like, Mick, you should have seen me when I was homeless and you should see me now.
I love that. I love the awareness aspect, and I want to share something too because a couple of years ago, once I started to kind of become self-conscious and self-aware of how everything was impacting me, one thing I started to do is I actually used to fall asleep, and sometimes I still do, to movies like The Secret, to things like
Yeah,
Napoleon Hill's Master
great.
Key Society
Great.
videos on YouTube, a bunch of really old videos, uh, and I would just fall asleep to that because I realized that throughout my whole day, I've been hearing stuff. Well, number one, I'm living on autopilot if I'm not being conscious of,
Yeah.
or trying to implement new things. So that really helped me. And that's something super simple. And that's something free that everybody today can do is something as simple as waking up and listening to something, falling asleep to something like The Secret. Like get
Yeah.
some new ideas into your mind because your awareness over like life and like what actually is kind of going on and what might be impacting you, it becomes so much more clear.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're trying to figure everything out by yourself, your own awareness can take you so far, only
Yeah.
take you so far.
So let me tell you a story. Way back when I was going through poverty and I was taking all kind of jobs, and they had temporary jobs where you could work for a day and quit, get a different job the next day. And it was scrambling. It was a very difficult way to live. And I was driving a clunker of a car, but it had a cassette player. And I would get cassettes, self-improvement, self-help tapes way back then from the public library. They were free. And as I'm driving around, I'm listening to self help, to self improvement, to spiritual growth. A lot of those audios were from a company called Nightingale Conant,
Ooh,
which has
Earl
been around
Nightingale.
since the 1960s. And I'd listen as I'm driving around, and I called it my university on wheels because I'm trying to program my mind. I'm trying to make a difference. I am struggling, as anybody looking at me would have seen at the time. And I'm poor and I'm broke, but here I am trying. And I kept doing this. And the punchline to the story is around 1998, Nightingale Conant, the very company that I had been listening to all those audio cassettes from the library from, published one of my audio programs, The Power of Outrageous Marketing. And then after The Secret came out, I published one of their all time best selling audio programs called The Missing Secret. I went from being not even a customer because I was getting their audios from the library, but a student to being their lead audio producer and speaker. This is the power of listening to something that is more useful, more enriching, more positive. You're programming yourself for success. And I want everybody to be sure that they're hearing you're already programming yourself. You're being programmed by everything we've been talking about, and you're programming yourself by choosing to continue listening to the negativity. And so when you wake up and choose a new direction, you start to program yourself for a better life. And that better life does become your new reality.
That's incredible. I always tell people, because a lot of people, they'll use the term luck, or they'll say that they're not lucky, and they use that as an excuse. But I always tell people, you can make yourself quote unquote luckier,
Right.
and
Right.
positioning yourself in the right spot,
Right.
preparing yourself.
Yep.
Like luck wants to find you, opportunity wants to find you, but you
Yeah.
have to do the things so that way you can notice it. If
Yeah.
you're not in the right spot when the train comes, you're never going to see it. If you're not ready to jump on the train because you're not prepared to jump on the train, you're never going to be able to get on it.
Yeah.
So like the things that you just said right there, like listening to those cassette tapes and stuff, you're preparing yourself and positioning yourself so that when that opportunity does come later down the road, you're ready for it. Whereas a lot of people, they don't even recognize that. And then they look around at everyone else and they're wondering, why is everyone so lucky? Well, they're
Yeah.
doing things different than what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like the Nightingale thing, I've listened to Earl Nightingale and Napoleon Hill's, dissect Think and Grow Rich from
Right.
like 1950 so many times in my car.
Yeah.
And and people might look at me or think I'm crazy for that. But the reason why I'm doing that is because that information and stuff that look at the proof, look at what it
Yeah.
has done. Look at like Dr. Joe is a living example of what the power of this kind of stuff does. And if you're wondering how other people are successful and you're not willing to put in that little bit of work of just getting that information in you, you are never going to be able to change your life. And I had to deal with that. I had to put my ego aside because I thought I knew everything. And I think a lot of people who are 18 or 20 can agree with that. We think that we know everything, but there's so much we don't know. And putting yourself down to a place of saying, okay, I'm a student always in life. And who are my teachers? Who do I want to be my teachers can change everything. Like Dr. Joe, I chose a long time ago to have you as one of my teachers, even though I didn't know you, even long before we connected, I knew that what you're doing and what you're producing in the world is stuff that I wanted in my own life. So I started to get your book, started to dive into everything, started to dive into The Secret. And I want to encourage people because it took a conversation like we're having on this podcast now. For me, 5 years ago, I was listening, I think from Tony Robbins to where I was like, you know what? I do have to change things because I'm going to be stuck forever if I don't.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just wanted to
Beautiful.
encourage people that.
No, beautifully said. I've heard the luck statement, obviously, over the decades, even where somebody says, "Oh, you're just lucky," but it's like, well, would you like to be lucky too? If you would like to be lucky too, let me give you a few clues. You mentioned Think and Grow Rich. More people have become successful because of that one book than any other book in history that I could name. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And this is another example. I studied Think and Grow Rich when in 1970, and I was still in college in 1970. So I read Think and Grow Rich then. And today I'm president of the Napoleon Hill Institute. I didn't see it coming. I didn't ask for it, but I was doing those things along the way that changed me from desperate, from depressed, from discouraged, from unpublished, from unknown to being a guy. I've got 15 albums. I've got 90 books. I've got my own movie. I'm in 30 other movies. I have hundreds of products. I have my own coaching program. I travel around the world speaking on stages in countries I didn't even know existed when I was growing up. I'm saying this all as a mouthful to point out that I'm still a guy that was in poverty, driving around in a car that I didn't know would make it down the street, listening to cassettes to reprogram my brain that I borrowed from the public library. So you create your own luck by the choices you make right now. And I want to harp again on taking action because I really believe that's the secret. When people have told me, "Hey, Joe, what's the real secret? When you boil it all down, what does it all come down to?" And I struggled with it until I realized, yeah, there is a secret. And that secret beats having money. It beats having connections. It beats being smarter or luckier or, any number of things people could say. And that secret is simply one word, and that's persistence. Persistence wins the race. You get up every day and you move in the direction of whatever your dream or dreams are. And as long as you keep moving forward, you win. You win every day because you move forward. You'll have milestones along the way as you keep moving forward. And a lot of the goals that you wanted will start coming true as you move forward. So you keep moving forward. Persistence, daily action wins the race.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And a lot of people don't think about the fact that their own lives, their own life experiences are what qualifies them. So for example, you were homeless at one point. You listened to the Napoleon Hill stuff and now you said you're the chairman, right?
I'm the president of the Napoleon Hill
President of the
Institute.
Napoleon Hill Institute. And a lot of people don't recognize the fact that you went through that transformation from homelessness to now being able to rewrite your own story. You did the work through the action, through your own
Yes.
self, work. You did the work. And a lot of people don't recognize that you are most qualified to serve the person you once were. If you were once homeless now and you got through it, and now look at where you're at now, you're qualified to help whoever's going through the situation you were in back then.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't recognize the fact that that's not luck. That's people genuinely doing the work. And a lot of people think that they're not qualified enough to be able to do the things that they might dream about in their head. I'm not qualified to write a book. I'm not qualified to do these things. You get qualified by
Right.
taking the action, by
Yes.
going through the bad
Yes.
moments,
Yes.
by
Yes.
your
That's it.
entire life that maybe
Yes.
up until this point has sucked. You
Right.
getting through that, you doing the work qualifies you to help other people through
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
And I always encourage people to remember that because it's so easy to get stuck. It's so easy to think that you can't get to a certain point. But your struggle is the reason why you're qualified to help people through it.
What great wisdom. That is well said. I'm just yelling over here in the bleachers. Yes, 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 yes. I'm thinking back. My first book was 1984. And as I think back, I'm going, I had no qualifications to write that book. It was called Zen and the Art of Writing. Well, it was my first book, so I wasn't a successful writer before it. And here I am talking about how to write, and I wasn't a Zen master. I listened to audios and I studied and everything. And I thought, well, that's a good title, Zen and the Art of Writing. And I write this little book in 1984 is the first publication of it. But as I stop and think about it, there's a little bit of a ballsy move because I have no evidence that I know anything about Zen or anything about writing. But because I wrote the book, that's my evidence. I'm the author of Zen and the Art of Writing. In fact, I began to teach writing classes because I had proof I was a writer. Here's my book. Where'd the book come from? I wrote it.
uh, I love that. And I want to ask you about your creative process because, like we were just saying, a lot of people don't feel qualified. And a lot of people, like, whether it be about books or they have dreams, what would you tell them or what advice would you give them if they have a message but they just don't feel qualified to try and achieve it?
That's a great question. I think the easiest answer is you have to follow your heart. If you really feel like I have this message and yet I'm uncertain about me being the person to deliver it, you have to accept that the message has been given to you and you are the messenger. I kind of take a divine look at this and I say that all of the urges that seem like they are there to help other people, those are coming from what I call the divine. You can say God gave it to you. That's the mission came from God. You're on a mission from God. Put it that way. You're on a mission from God. This is the message you have to give out. You don't have to have any sort of permission. I think that's actually one of the beliefs that hold people up. They think they need permission from somebody. And I vaguely remember way back in 1984, I think I wrestled with it a little bit because I thought, well, who am I to write a book on Zen and the Art of Writing in 84, especially when even in that point, I was in poverty. I was struggling, even in 84. That was after homelessness, but I wasn't out of the woods here. And here I am wanting to do it. But there was this drive in me, this compelling push that felt inspired, and I followed it. And I have followed that divine push in all these different things we've been talking about and all these different books that I've written. And so I would tell people, if you got that message in you, I would assume you are the person to deliver it, and stand and testify. Stand up and deliver it. You don't
I'm
need anybody's permission. You don't need a diploma, not for this. You don't need a whatever you think you need. You probably don't need it.
I'm so happy you said that, because there's so many people living or hearing that right now that are living in, whether it be extreme debt, poverty, or depressed, or maybe like life just isn't going their way, and they do have a mission, but they just don't feel like they feel like they need to be at a certain point, or they need permission. They look around and they're like, I need to
Right.
have money before I can talk about this. I need to
Mhm.
make sure that I don't have anxiety, depression before I talk about
No.
meditation or stuff like that. I
God,
need to
there's
be
so
this
much we
way.
can talk about here. I want to say a couple more things, because now you're activating the messenger in me, and I'm thinking, okay, I got to help these people. I got to help these people. Well, first of all, I was broke when I got that first book published, and I was disappointed because the book was published and didn't go anywhere. So I was broke in 1984, and I had my first book published, and it came out and it didn't go anywhere because the publisher didn't know anything about marketing, and neither did I. But it was a turning point because I went on my quest to learn about marketing, and I became one of the first internet marketers because the internet was being born about the same time. So I am clumsily and insecurely going after my success, doing what I could at the time. I also want people to know that I learned that being a speaker was one of the keys to success, especially if you're an author and you have a book and it's not selling. I had heard that if I could stand in front of a group of people and they liked me and I held up my book, they would probably buy the book. The punchline is I was terrified, insecure, immature, no experience speaking, very shy, very reclusive. It's one of the reasons I wanted to be an author, because I didn't have to face anybody. And I remember I saw a woman who had graduated with me from high school. I saw her decades later, and I had said, "What do you remember from me about me?" And she paused and she said, "I don't think you ever said a word, ever, ever." And so I had to learn to be a speaker. And the first group I spoke to had 6 people in it, and I was sweating bullets. I was about to vomit. I was going to pass out. I was trembling. I was leaning against the blackboard. It was like, this is hell. This was traumatizing. But I did it, kept doing it. I was on Larry King twice when he was around and had a show. Largest live audience I spoke to was 20,000 people in Peru, live. And I'm saying all this because I had to speak when I was not ready to speak. I wrote a book when there was no evidence that I could write a book. I had to market that book when I didn't know what marketing was insecure and immature about marketing. Do not wait to pursue your dreams. I have so many more stories I could tell if we had more time to do it, about just following my whims, following my passion, following my interests, following the message that was being nudged from within me, and having this unexpected, colossal success. But I did it stumbling my way.
Wow. That, again, another mic drop moment right there, because a lot of people might look at you now from the outside and say, "Oh, this guy's always been a good speaker. Oh, this guy is in movies. He must not have anxiety. He must not ever have worried about what other
Yeah.
people think of him. Oh, I can't relate." But this is one of the reasons why I love podcasts, and like you were saying with movies too, because there's certain things that just can't get across through writing it alone. But
Yeah.
conversations like this allow people to be able to see themselves in us.
Yeah.
Like, there's people that that are listening and watching this episode now that are able to see themselves in you, and that gives them hope, because now they're
Yeah.
like, okay, what if, like Dr. Joe, he couldn't speak in front of people. What if I can get in front
Yeah.
of people and start speaking and tell my message? And I love that because the ripple effect that you were talking about, you never know if you can get your message out in the world, you never know who it's going to help. And if that person that got helped also has the desire to help other people, you never know how many lives you can change.
Yeah.
And if you don't take that chance of trying to serve the world and be of service and be useful to the world, you're just it I don't know. For me, it's a depressing way to it's a depressing thing to think about. The fact that what if I'm not living in my mission and helping other people? Like who am I missing out on reaching? Who are
Yeah.
they missing out on reaching because I'm
Yes.
not doing my
It's
things?
yeah.
And that's enough to give me confidence to start. So that's why I wanted to say that because if you're looking for confidence to start, a lot of times you're not going to have it.
Yeah.
I didn't have it the first time I ever gave a speech either. I literally almost passed out.
Yeah.
I actually didn't say it. I went to a club called Toastmasters to
Mhm.
learn how to public speak. The first 2 times I ever went there, I was literally having a panic attack, sitting in the back. I didn't say one word the first 2 times.
Mhm.
And the third meeting I went, I gave a 30-second table topic speech, and I was terrified, sweating. I literally thought I was gonna die up there. And because I was able to do that, that gave me actual tangible proof and evidence that I can do it rather than my head telling me, "Oh, I can't do this." And all those opportunities that my mind was telling me are crossed off the table because I couldn't get in front of people now was gone. So now this whole new reality, like we were talking about earlier, opened up because I took action.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to share that story too in case somebody else can relate.
Very beautiful, very beautiful. We can all learn anything, and I wanna make sure, I guess this could be an ending statement, that people understand I'm not unique. There have been lots of people who have gone through homelessness, went on to fame and fortune of one sort or another. It is not an isolated experience when I talk about it. I am not unique when it comes to being nervous about speaking. When I was beginning to be a speaker and I was terrified of it, I did a lot of research. I read about famous orators and all of that. They were all nervous in the beginning. None of them were born on stage. I'm not rereading, but I'm reading the new biography of Mark Twain that just came out. It's a bestseller. I'm a big fan of Mark Twain. I was astonished. I knew that he had been a speaker. I knew that he was a colossally fantastic speaker. I mean, he got standing ovations, thousands came to see him. Before he spoke, especially the very first time, he was petrified. They used the word petrified. This is Mark Twain. Oh, you would think this is the easy street. He can just mumble on stage and everybody would be happy. He was petrified before he went on. Like all of us, you keep doing it and you get better and you get more comfortable and you get more relaxed. And so, whatever people are feeling right now, like, oh, I can't do that. Yeah, you can do that. You might stumble at first. All of our first efforts at just about anything, they're probably not our finest moments. But we have to get past the dumb part, the sketchy part, the clumsy part to get to the more polished part.
I love that. Connect that back to what you said earlier about the self-preservation too. If you can just get over the fact that, maybe the reason why you're not taking action is because you're protecting yourself. Well, what if
Yeah.
this thing that you're
Yeah.
protecting yourself from is actually the thing that's going to get you to the next level to help change not only your life, but maybe your family's life, maybe the lives of those around the world. But Dr. Joe, I want to be respectful of your time. I want to ask you one more question here. Out of all the books that you've written, for somebody who is going to pick up one today, is there a book that you think has been overlooked or that you wish more people would read? Is there one book of yours that you would recommend people to read right now to put in effect some of the stuff we've talked about today?
That's almost a cruel question.
I
I've
know
written,
there's so many.
I've, I've written 90 books and read thousands of them. It's like, hey, just tell us one, Joe.
To start.
Um, I'll give you two books. All right, you get a bonus book here. The first thing is the book, The Attractor Factor. That has probably helped more people in general as an entryway into changing your life. That was also the book that got me invited to be in the movie The Secret. When Rhonda Byrne, the director, read The Attractor Factor, she called me up and she told me about her movie. She wanted me to be in the movie. It was all because of that book. So, The Attractor Factor is the first book I would mention. And a book that is fairly overlooked, and you may not even know about it, is a book I'm proud of. And I do hear from time to time it's helped people. It's a little book called Life's Missing Instruction Manual. Life's Missing Instruction Manual. I think I wrote it 20 years ago. Well, even The Attractor Factor was probably 25 to 30 years ago, but they both hold up. So, The Attractor Factor and Life's Missing Instruction Manual, those are the books I'd suggest.
Awesome. And then June 26th, we got the Zero Limits movie coming out as well for people to check out. Again, all this stuff that we've mentioned will be in the show notes for anyone listening today. Dr. Joe, thank you so much for your time and for your energy and for your passion and for your service to the world, because not only have you impacted my life personally, but I know so many people. Me and my cousins, my family, when we were younger, when we were like 9, 10 years old, we would watch The Secret. And that was I can't tell you now, 15 years later, you know, all of our lives, like the things that were introduced then put us on a whole different trajectory. And like, it's just, I always am mind blown looking back of, okay, where am I now? But it's just, I just wanted to say you have impacted my life, and I know so many other people who you have as well too.
Thank you. Well, I love what you're doing. You're touching a world that I usually get to reach. So I'm glad to be here for the ride and to make a difference. And you're doing it. You're making a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr.